We have breaking news this morning. The nation's highest court will soon hand down one of the most closely watched decisions of the year, with the fate of President Trump's executive order on birthright citizenship hanging in the balance. Thanks for joining us this morning. That's our top story. I'm Vanessa Broussard. The case centers on whether the administration can limit automatic U.S. citizenship for children born on American soil to parents who are in the country illegally or temporarily. The order has been blocked by lower courts while the legal challenge has played out. At issue is the interpretation of the 14th Amendment, which has long been understood to grant citizenship to nearly everyone born in the United States. The Supreme Court's decision could either allow parts of the executive order to take effect or send portions of the case back to the lower courts for additional proceedings. A ruling is expected this morning. Let's bring in Jim Paff with the Conservative Caucus. Jim, it's a big day. Let's look at the 14th Amendment. It says all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and the state wherein they reside. Now, the key legal debate centers on that phrase, subject to the jurisdiction thereof. That's where people are trying to interpret what that means. What do you take from this when you're reading the 14th Amendment?
Well, I think that the language is entirely clear that it's only people at that time who were already in the country, already under the laws of the United States and the state where they lived at the time of the 14th Amendment. And when you look even more clearly and deeply, into all this, you recognize that when the debates were being had in Congress about what to do or how to do this amendment and make it happen, it was clearly intended to make certain that slaves who had by this time already roughly been freed because the Civil War was over, to be able to take on the full benefits of citizenship. I mean, the intention of Congress in writing this amendment was to make sure that they would be full and free citizens and not subject to any bypassing of their legal rights because they would be treated as second-class citizens by those who had enslaved them. That was the purpose and intention of this amendment. There's no one else to be thought of. In fact, in part of the debate on the language of this, they explicitly, some people argued that this explicitly excluded the children born to people who were representing other countries here as diplomats, and to people who were citizens of foreign countries who might have their child. I mean, this was explicitly discussed. It didn't go explicitly into the language, unfortunately, up to this point, but it was explicitly stated and understood by those putting this together that the intention was to make sure that black slaves would become full citizens with all the rights of citizenship.
Right.
And them
it goes
alone.
back to the slavery days. Now, let's use an example here. Say there's a pregnant woman and she goes into Canada on vacation. She goes into labor early and she has her baby in Canada. They're released from the hospital. They fly back home to the United States. The baby is not a Canadian citizen, right? The baby is an American with a fun story to tell as they grow up. Yes, I'm an American, but I was actually born in Canada, right? So, but what the problem we're seeing with this, Jim, is that so many people are coming to America giving birth for their children to have a better life, but they're not citizens. The parents aren't citizens, but they're coming over here illegally and giving birth so their child can be an American citizen.
Yeah, there's actually an entire tourist, an entire business that brings people in as birth tourists. I mean, we've seen this over and over again. I don't know if anyone knows precisely the number, but it's probably in the order of hundreds of thousands of children that have come over the years to be born here for this very purpose. And we're told, and some reports seem to indicate that China's been doing this extensively. That wealthy people in China have been sending people over to have babies and then come back. They grow up in China, they have full citizenship, and then they return to the United States. This has really been an ill-advised policy and interpretation. There had been legal interpretations through the years about this, but the reality is that the evidence is very clear what the intention of the legislation was. And if we want to add to this some general rational discussion, which, I think the legal argument's strong enough. But when you take the example you just gave of someone going up into Canada and giving birth earlier than expected, Canada doesn't provide this to that person. And in fact, I don't think there's one country in the world that does this. If there are, it's some tiny country that doesn't matter. And I doubt it. I doubt that they would even do that, because any country that is going to take on everyone else from every other country around the world, or any country that wants to come there, you end up burgeoning that population and burdening it subsequently with people who may or may not be connected to your society at all. So this, on a logical basis, it's absurd to think that you would give birthright citizenship to anyone just for showing up here. And on the factual basis, both through the arguments leading up to the final text that came, and the plain language of the text itself of the 14th Amendment, birthright citizenship is not a real thing. This one of the reasons that we have put up with this for so many years is because we're a good country filled with good people who have charitable intent for everyone around the world. We're having this discussion on temporary protected status for Haitians. And one of the arguments that's being made now that the Supreme Court has said that Donald Trump can change the status of temporary protected status at any time, which again was evident in his general powers, Article 2 powers, but also rationally there, temporary protected status. And people are, oh my gosh, all the poor Haitians, which is the largest group under this, or one of the large groups. Oh, the poor Haitians are going to get thrown back to Haiti. Well, the reality is this: as good-willed as we may be towards other countries, and the desire that every one of us has that other countries be able to have their citizens enjoy a good life similar to what we have, it's impossible for us to bring them all here to live this life when, quite frankly, under this program, and under the birthright citizenship thing, people don't assimilate. They don't come here to be part of what we are and to take on the attributes of what we are as a nation, or to respect the Constitution when they come in through this kind of a status. They aren't here for that purpose, but they also ought to be fighting in their own countries for a better situation in their own lives. And we can do various things as a country maybe to be supportive of that and to encourage it, but there's nothing we can do to change it. So the temporary protected status thing is bad enough, but the birthright citizenship thing that is now being weaponized against us by countries that do not have our best interests at heart, we are opening the door for a massive problem in the future. So to be candid, I'm concerned about what the Supreme Court's going to do on this today, and that they're not going to get rid of it, especially after what came out yesterday. I hope I'm
You're
wrong about
absolutely
that,
right.
but that's a concern.
It's absolutely a concern, because you look at Amy Coney Barrett and how she voted when it comes to the mail-in ballots. That's very worrisome going into today with birthright citizenship, and we'll talk on that in just a minute. But I want to go back to ending temporary protected status for hundreds of thousands of Haitians. You're right, Jill. They come in, not all of them. A lot of them do come in wanting better lives and to provide for themselves and to work hard and make a better life and be good law abiding citizens if they come in the legal way. But the key word here is temporary, and it kept getting extended by former administrations. But during this time, they had over a decade During that decade, if you really wanted to be a good law abiding American and wanted to be here and do well for our country and provide for our country and make our country better, you had plenty of time to apply for citizenship. I mean, am I wrong here? It's not like they've just been here 6 months. This is what, 16 years?
For many of them, it is. And some of them have just been a handful of years because one thing to add to what you just talked about is the Biden administration very aggressively, when it comes to Haiti, brought in Haitians to be part of this country. They flew them in because of so-called humanitarian efforts related to the earthquake that happened many years ago. The Biden administration was promoting a plan and I think we've all been right that have talked about this. It truly is the great replacement theory. Their intent was to bring people into this country that they could use as political pawns, Democrats, to be able to maintain electoral success. You had others who had the motivation of bringing in cheap labor to be able to work in their companies. Of course, that's an outrageous motivation as well too. But the Haitians that came in particular were brought in droves on purpose, not because they were even necessarily strongly seeking it, and they were bypassed. The typical methodology to provide temporary protected status was bypassed in favor of shoving hundreds of thousands of people into our culture. This is just an extension of the outrageous border policy that the Biden administration, allowing tens of millions of people to come across the border during his time. So, listen, the reality is life is tough. Everything in life is a challenge. But the only way to fix problems is not to come in and dilute what the United States is. We want to strengthen what we are. We want to strengthen the values and the governmental structure that we have based on the Constitution, based on the American ideal of the opportunity to succeed, and then encourage other countries to adopt it as well, those same ideals, not to bring all these countries here into the United States. You look at what's taking place in Europe right now. Europe has not only overregulated itself so much that businesses can't do well there. And remember, when the European Union was formed and they created the euro, there were projections that a Europe of a population of 400 plus million, larger than the United States, would bypass us in gross domestic product. Now they're 50% less of what we are. And in part, it's because of their regulation, but it's also because of a massive immigration policy that has entirely disrupted their society, particularly Muslim immigration. And certain countries in Scandinavia have suffered greatly for it. They're not even recognizable as the Scandinavian country they used to be. I think Sweden is the top of that list. So this is an example of what happens when you don't have restraints on what you do with immigration. And so the temporary protected status, I'm very thankful. And Amy Coney Barrett was on the right side of that one. So that may give us some hope on the birthright citizenship thing, hopefully. But in fact, it was a 6-3 decision. It was all the justices from Roberts and the right-hand side of the court. So hopefully, that's a good sign too. But the reality is you cannot build a country by making it a country that has the kind of immigration that we have had in recent years, which is a whole lot more people on a percentage basis coming to this country than we've ever had in our country's history. And we've had some pretty massive waves of immigration from time to time, late 19th century, early 20th century in particular. This is not sustainable. And so the Trump administration is doing a good job now to turn it all around and to get it back in order.
You're absolutely right. Not sustainable at all. There's so many different ways that our immigration system is broken. The Trump administration doing a wonderful job. Zero border crossings throughout his term. But we have to fix the birthright citizenship as well. And again, for everyone just tuning in, we're awaiting that decision any moment now, really, from the Supreme Court as they hand down. This is going to be history, and it could really shape, Jim, what our immigration looks like in the future for our country. But again, this may not be a decision of this is what I think the 14th Amendment means. They can send this back to
Hmm.
the lower court. They can make a decision on part of it. I mean, this can go different ways today. We just don't know which way it's going to go, but there are different avenues in which the Supreme Court can take this morning.
They're going to rule on it. I don't think they're going to send it back to the courts. It's really made. I mean, it's already worked its way through the courts pretty extensively over the last few months. I think they're going to make a decision on it. And when you consider the questioning from the bench when it was heard in the Supreme Court a few months ago, that seems to be the case as well. So we're going to find out what's going to happen. But again, we cannot bypass the fact that the Supreme Court doesn't have final say on the Constitution. It deals with cases at law. And this can be dealt with again. And in fact, it can be dealt with legislatively, even if it goes the wrong way. If Republicans could ever get a backbone, all they have to do is say, no, that's not acceptable, and pass a law to change it. This is why we have three branches of government. Each one can go against the other and get things right if things go wrong.
Republicans and backbone don't really go hand in hand these days. The
No.
Senate is off this week, another vacation for them when we're still trying to pass the Save America Act. But let's talk about that. Let's move on to the next ruling that the Supreme Court issued just yesterday. A 5-4 decision holding that states may count mail-in ballots that are postmarked by Election Day, but arrive afterward if the state law allows it. Here we go again. It's not Election Day. It's election week. It's election month. I mean, why can't we just get back to Election Day?
Well, because that's the only way that you can really do the work that's necessary if you're a Democrat, because Republicans don't utilize these systems as thoroughly as they should. But if you're a Democrat and want to get an edge, this is one way you get an edge. If we say, for instance, that there's no fraud that takes place related to this counting of ballots for days after an election, you still are giving people the ability to fudge the system. The reason you want Election Day, that everything has to be counted on Election Day, is to reduce the amount of fraud that might happen in an unorganized fashion. This is why if you vote illegally, you have committed a federal crime. So individuals are responsible for their own vote as well. We take it that seriously in the law. But when you look at what's going on in California and the fact that their vote gathering rules and their ballot rules allow for actual fraud to take place, or what we would consider actual fraud in other states, what is actually illegal in other states, they allow to happen within their election system. And that is a huge, huge risk in and of itself. So you have to push back on these methodologies. We have to pass the Save America Act to stop states like California from creating laws the way that they do. Listen, Samuel Alito made the right argument. I mean, this one was an obvious laydown that what Alito wrote in his dissent should have been the opinion of the court. We have three different sections in the U.S. Code, 2 USC and 3 USC, that are very clear about what Election Day is. And it is explicitly the first Tuesday after the first Monday of the month of November. This was first established in law in the 1840s because there was a potential of fraud even at that time when various states had different election days. And there was some indication that people were attempting to vote in one state and then get votes in another state as well. and they were concerned about what that might mean. And they just said, listen, we have to draw the line very clearly so that everyone knows that there was no fraud taking place. So since that's the case, since that was the case then, I mean, we understand what the intent is, but we also know from the Constitution that there was supposed to be an election day. And in reality, let's just back up even further here. For 230 years of our history, roughly, election day meant election day. That is what we did. I mean, even with this 1849 decision that I pointed to, the intent was that there is an election day and everything stops right then. If you do not do that, if you do not have a clear line drawn in the sand, it opens up the opportunity not just for fraud, but for people to question whether the process was fair to begin with. We must have a fair election process, or we do not have a country, because we live under the idea of popular sovereignty. The reason that the Constitution starts out with "we the people" in order to form a more perfect union was an assertion of this idea of popular sovereignty, or better, otherwise stated, we are the kings of this country, not the government. The government is accountable to us. Elections are not government efforts. They are managed by governments. Government elected officials are given authority to administrate elections, but they're only given authority to administrate them. They are not given authority to be the only final authority without any inspection of the work that they did. That and this is another big crime taking place in this country right now. We've got election official after election official hiding information when people want to see what was going on. But our desire to see the fact clearly is fundamental to a free republic, because they do not get to decide for us how our republic is run. We get to decide. That's why we elect people in this free republic. And it's also why we need to hold them accountable.
You're right. But every time you question an election, they call us conspiracy theorists. But President Trump's been vocal about this decision from the Supreme Court. He posted in light of the tremendous loss in the Supreme Court today concerning voters' rights and the fact that people's votes are allowed to be counted long after an election is over. It is more important than ever to pass the Save America Act. President Trump also speaking on this from the Oval Office. Let's take a listen.
Well, because of the mail-in ballot ruling, which was a little bit surprising, gives people more time to vote illegally, let's say. But the SAVE Act is even more important, and that's the right. You have to be a citizen of our country. Okay, you have to show you're a citizen of our country, called citizenship. Voter ID by photo voter ID, and no mail-in ballots unless you're in the military, disabled, you're ill, or you're away, or even on a vacation. We're being very open about it. It's pretty easy. And we'll have honest elections. But the ruling, which a lot of people were waiting for, that was a ruling that was, I think it was very detrimental to honest elections. But it is what it is. Basically, they're keeping it a little bit the way it is now. They may have a little bit of a restriction on based on the wording.
About firing the parliamentarian.
And then you have the very important one, the Slaughter case, which we'll talk about if you ask that question. But the parliamentarian, what were you asking about?
Yeah, have you talked with Thune about?
I have. No, I can't imagine why you keep a woman that was put there by Harry Reid and Barack Hussein Obama. I cannot understand it. The leader has the right to fire the person at will and put somebody else there. That could be, because we get so many negative rulings from her, the parliamentarian. She's been there for years, and she was put there by Harry Reid and Barack Hussein Obama. Harry Reid was a bad guy, and he was the leader, and he put her. And the speaker has the right to immediately fire her and put somebody else there. And it's not even believable that she's still there. She's obviously a good politician or something.
Your reaction, Jim?
I like to remind people that the parliamentarian does not run the Senate. It's the members who run the Senate. The parliamentarian does not make the rules. The parliamentarian looks at the rules and will provide guidance on the degree to which that parliamentarian believes the rules are being followed as guidance to the members. But members run the Senate. The members of the Senate run the Senate, not the parliamentarian. The parliamentarian is not the final say. Now, there will be an argument that, well, I mean, we need an independent judge on this. Well, that's fine, and that can be useful. But at the end of the day, if the members believe that the parliamentarian is wrong, and let's not forget, as with any person in any position of authority anywhere in a government system, that's a human being who may be subject to fault or error or even partisan decision making that meant to, put the finger on the scale of justice. And frankly, this parliamentarian seems to have done that in many cases. And frankly, John Thune can get rid of her anytime he wants to, because he is the ultimate authority right now. He won't do it. But this is what's even worse about it. That we have a feckless leadership in the Senate, and less so, but still the case in the House, of Republicans that don't have the spine for good that Democrats have for evil. And that needs to change. You must have that counter. The reason that we have a representative democracy where everyone is free under the First Amendment to express themselves, and that everyone is free to express themselves politically, culturally, and otherwise, is to provide a counter for potential evil. There are the four classical virtues that have been a part of Western culture for centuries, for millennia, actually. And basic virtues like fortitude and so forth, courage and temperance, all these kind of things. And those are all important. And frankly, I think most people in the West generally agree with those things. But there are the Christian virtues of faith, hope, and charity that monitor and frankly should inform those basic virtues. We have thrown this understanding off to the side. And Republicans in Congress are the worst about it, because there are a lot of people in the Republican caucus. And trust me, I worked around many of these people for a lot of years on Capitol Hill. They claim to be Christians, but they frankly don't act like Christians in the way that they consider how they're going to vote or how they're going to operate things. And it's a really absurd evil that they push all that aside. Fundamental ideas of morality, of justice, and of righteousness that are important in every culture. And when John Thune acts the way he is, he proves that his whole scheme and way of thinking is antithetical to a moral base that would do the very things that would bring the most justice to society. And the Save America Act is a fundamental one of these things, because if we don't have this kind of justice in our elections, then we don't even have a country anymore. And I was really displeased about my former boss, Thomas Massey, recently saying, yeah, I'm going to vote for the SAVE Act, but we got more important things that we're dealing with here. Well, to be candid, we do have a lot of important things, and they're serious, but this is existential. If we do not do our elections right, it doesn't matter. And what his argument was, well, Republicans have all three branches of government right now, so what's the problem? Well, the problem is that past performance is not indicative of future results. If you don't have a free and fair system, the future results will change in a skewed manner. This is how serious and important this is.
So very important. The American people are wanting it, Democrats and Republicans alike, but Thune and the rest of the Senate just dragging their feet on and on and on. So we'll see what happens. Real quick, Jim, before time runs out, we are awaiting Scotus' decision on birthright citizenship. Can be coming down any minute now. But I want to talk to you real quick about another, I would say ruling, but the Supreme Court declined to hear President Trump's appeal of the $5 million civil judgment in favor of E. Jean Carroll. Now, by refusing to take this case, the court left the lower court's decision in place. What's your take on the Supreme Court declining to hear this and sending it back to the lower courts?
Well, I think they should have heard it just because of the magnitude of it, but I'm not bound up to, being too critical of it, because this is just one man and the things that he needs to deal with. The reason to hear something like this is that it's necessary to try to deal with the general lawfare that brought this about. And I think the E. Jean Carroll case seems very clear to me that she was massaged and moved. Of course, her legal efforts were funded by Reid Hoffman, the founder of Netflix, who's a radical leftist. And it was designed to stir up problems for Donald Trump for political reasons, because the story itself is invalid. I have no idea precisely what Donald Trump's relationship was with her all those many years ago. I can't account for that. But what I can account for is the evidence that is on the table and has been presented in court. And it is filled with inaccuracies, with contradictions, with information that doesn't make sense for other reasons, and a court procedure, both in the criminal case, which Donald Trump fortunately didn't have to deal with, but also in the civil case, to twist the facts in a manner to get a judgment utilizing the power that a judge has on the bench to get to a certain outcome. And on that basis, that's a fundamental problem of justice. That the Supreme Court wouldn't hear it, I mean, that's almost a coin flip, because it is just one individual case. Like these other cases we've been talking about have broad impact and broad implications for the fundamental foundations of our Constitution, the temporary protection status, birthright citizenship. These have broad implications. Donald Trump's one case doesn't, but I would like to have seen them do it and try to close this chapter. At the end of the day, I think the American public, except for the most Trump derangement syndrome of them, know that there's really no there in her case. And so even though it's an expensive case for him at the judgment amount that is there, the ones that he did need to be relieved of, like what Letitia James attempted to do to literally steal his entire company for political purposes, those things have a much more serious impact. They are being dealt with or have been dealt with, and that's a good thing. Net, an injustice happened here, but I don't know how to completely fault the court for not taking it, even though I really do wish they had.
Yes, and President Trump going on again yesterday after that decision on Truth Social, saying that, again, this is a fake case brought against me by a woman I have never met. I will continue the fight against the weaponization and lawfare case against me, including the ridiculous claim of defamation, with all my power and strength. So we'll continue to watch this case as well. But again, today, the important case we're watching, birthright citizenship. Jim, as we start to wrap up here, I just want to say President Trump just posted that his efforts to reverse birthright citizenship may succeed with or without Scotus. So a big announcement from him, whether they rule in his favor or not. He says it will succeed with or without them. But we'll continue to watch. It should be handed down any minute now. Stay with us here on LINDELLTV and also on our social media pages. As soon as SCOTUS makes that ruling, we'll put it out to you. Jim, always a pleasure to have you on. Thanks so much for stopping by. I encourage everyone to go to theconservativecaucus.com. Great movement there. Got to get prepared for the midterms. And you all do a great job in all the states, making sure that we are set and ready to go. Jim, I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for stopping by today.
Thanks, Vanessa. Good to see you.
Also happening today, the United States and Iran are holding a high-stakes meeting in Qatar. President Trump has said U.S. officials are moving forward with negotiations aimed at building on a fragile ceasefire and reaching a broader agreement on Iran's nuclear program and security in the Strait of Hormuz. Now, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner are expected to be at that meeting.
There'll be a meeting on that tomorrow in Doha. And they're going to Qatar. I think they've already left, or they're just about getting ready to leave. So we'll see how that goes. But we're doing very well on that front. But the meeting in Doha is going to be perhaps important, perhaps not. We're going to find out. But we're winning militarily. It's almost won militarily, I would say. And it's really very simple. It's the denuclearization of Iran. We don't want them to have a nuclear weapon, and they're not going to have a nuclear weapon. And they've agreed to that, in all fairness.
Now, if the meeting proceeds, it would mark the first major diplomatic engagement since the latest military escalation. It could determine whether the two sides move toward a lasting agreement or renewed confrontation. We'll continue to follow this as well. Now to the long-hidden MK Ultra records that are back in the spotlight today. The House Oversight Committee is demanding access to the mind control experiments. Project MK Ultra began in the 1950s, and it involved CIA-backed research into drugs, interrogation methods on people that didn't even know they were being tested. With us today is Juliet Engel to tell us more. Juliet, good to have you on the show this morning. You've been here with us before on the show to discuss surviving a horrible childhood memories that you continue to go through and, try to tell others about what you experienced to prevent that from happening to other children. But looking at the MK Ultra records, do you think that the testimony of survivors is the answer here?
I think the testimony of survivors is absolutely essential. And today there's the hearing with the Congresswoman Paulina Luna's committee, but there are no survivors testifying. There's two excellent researchers who have researched the documentation and have interviewed some survivors. I'm not sure who. So I think it's a good start because they'll lay a groundwork of fact, but it's fairly superficial fact if you aren't including the testimony of the thousands of Americans who've been through MK Ultra programming, which continues to this day. And I think my value in this is that I'm 77 years old. The program started in 1953. I was sold into the program in 1955 when I was 6. So I'm one of the oldest coming through. And because I was there in the very beginning when there weren't so many children in the program, I was able to, I knew the founders, Sidney Gottlieb, George White. I knew these people, I met these people, and my uncles, 5 of my uncles who were all in the OSS and then the CIA and then in the Nuremberg trials, working with bargaining with the Nazi scientists for their research, which then was later used in MK Ultra. I have a perspective which I hope will be helpful to later survivors who are still going through their healing process. I think it's essential that you let survivors speak who have healed. So myself, Kathy O'Brien, Max Lowen, J.R. Sweet, people have been through the process and have come out the other side, because most people don't get all the way through the other side. And we need to see that they do. There was a terrible injustice done to American children that needs to be addressed.
You're absolutely right. And I can't even fathom or begin to even imagine what all you and others went through during that time. Have you spoken to Congress? Have you given your testimony?
I've spoken to Congress, but it was while I was doing my work on child trafficking and rescuing children overseas years ago. So it wasn't specifically about MK Ultra. It's been very dangerous to talk about MK Ultra as a survivor, and you couldn't even really acknowledge it until December of 2024, which is when the National Security Archive released the first declassified batch of CIA documents in which they admit that this program existed, that they founded it, that they did it, that it came out of research on LSD and other drugs, that they were importing LSD from Switzerland, from Eli Lilly, by the ton for experimentation on Americans. The documents prove the places, the dates, the faces, the founders, which I, as a an eyewitness can testify to, yes, I knew these men, I knew these places, I was in several of them, including Disneyland in California, where the experiments were conducted. And so until 2024, at the end, December 24th, when nobody's looking, for news, they released probably the most significant documents for thousands of people's lives, admitting that, the program we told you were all crazy for even mentioning. That did exist. Yes, that happened. We did it. So now we can talk about it and refer to the CIA's own documents. They did a second release in October of 2025, and we're waiting for the third release, which I suspect was in the batch of declassified documents that Tulsi Gabbard referred to. So I hope they're being released. I hope they weren't seized by the FBI and the CIA and are being held. I don't know.
Yeah, and I've also read too, Juliet, that there's also missing records. And so there's records that have not been released yet and missing records. So again, this would be key when these survivors give their testimony, if that is the case. 1,200 MK Ultra documents were published in 2024. You said more were published in 2025. If you had a message for Congress today, what would that message be?
That you have to uncover this program is going to take much more than one hearing. You need multiple researchers who have covered the years, because I'm telling you that it began. I was there at its beginning in the early 50s, but it has continued. It has evolved over time and become gone from direct hands-on mind control and drugs, hypnosis, magic. I was in the sex magic program, and my book, Sparky, Surviving Sex Magic, is about my childhood in that program and how I survived it. But as we've become technologically more sophisticated, so has the programming. And in 1976, they had congressional hearings that reviewed the program. And at that time, it was 85 institutions and 150 programs that they identified to Congress were going on with human experimentation. And then they're the ones that then destroyed. That was Richard Helms came to the congressional hearing and said, well, we can't give you the subpoenaed documents because we've destroyed everything. Whether they did or not, I don't know, but I'm sure that that refers to the documents that would give us survivors specific information about where we were and what we were done. But I remember, so I can identify these places. I know who was there. I know what was done, and there are dozens of us, and the survivor testimony was postponed in Florida, and the reason they gave was that the survivors were too afraid to testify, and that led to a flurry of survivors contacting Congress, contacting each other, that no, we're not afraid to testify. You've got dozens of people that want to testify, and because it's a program that went from 1953 to the current time, you've got a spectrum of programs, of technologies, of levels of infiltration, including targeting, electronic targeting, so the targeting of individuals. And recently, the MK Ultra and electronic targeting programs were combined under the National Security Agency National Security Agreement to be 18 levels above the president. So it's top secret. They're classified together, meaning electronic targeting has been officially combined with MK Ultra and classified to be 18 levels above the president's need to know. So that it's existing. It's now. It's affecting us. It's affecting our children. We shouldn't be doing this. We're teaching Americans not to think. We're destroying minds. This is something I could talk about for hours, but they need to talk to the survivors because we're the eyewitnesses to what was done. We remember,
Right.
and we're ready to testify.
you remember and you know the names, the locations, and again, I hope Congress calls on each and every one of you to give your testimony. I want to direct people to your book. You briefly mentioned it, but people can go pick up a copy of your book that is a memoir of what you went through and how you survived that and how you healed. Where can people buy your book?
Trine Day is my publisher. TRINEDAY.com is my publisher. It's also on Amazon, or you can go to my website, which is just type in my name, JulietEngel.com, and you can get the book. It's I focus on survival. So it's all the difficulty I went through, but Sparky is the character I created and then became. So I rose out of that mire of misery and satanic abuse and became a person, a free spirit, a strong person who then went to medical school and established an underground railroad rescuing thousands of trafficking victims in the former Soviet Union for 20 years. So yes, the survivors that have gotten through this are strong, unafraid, and ready to testify. And the release of those national security documents only 1 year ago is what really gives us the freedom to be able to do that.
Well, Dr. Juliet Engel, we'll continue to follow the MK Ultra files. You're doing a wonderful job. You have taken terror and turned it into something very powerful. And I'm proud of the work that you've done on behalf of all of the victims out there. You're continuing to do a great job and be a voice for them. Thanks for stopping by today. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you for all you.
Thank you. When we come back, Washington, D.C. is being brought back to life. A look at the newest renovation projects. We'll show you next.
Talk is cheap when it comes to saving our country. We're not just any cell phone service provider. We're Patriot Mobile. It's not enough to simply talk about values. We live them. Defending life, protecting our First and Second Amendments, and celebrating our military and first responder heroes. We're boots on the ground making a difference. We're America's only Christian conservative wireless provider with nationwide coverage on all 3 major networks and 100% US-based customer service. Join Patriot Mobile today and make an impact every time you use your cell phone.
America's founders warned that without knowledge and virtue, no nation can remain free. Yet through the steady infiltration of Marxist ideology, we have been stripped of both, and we are no longer a moral and educated people. To save America, we must spark nothing less than a national renaissance. That's why you need Freedom Talk Magazine, the journal of truth and virtue. We cultivate enlightened thinking and principled living, offering unique insights into the issues and remarkable people defining our world. Sign up today for your free subscription to Freedom Talk Magazine and join the new American Renaissance.
Mike Lindell here. The radical left and the deep state aren't just coming for our freedoms, they're coming after our money too. For years, they've been destroying our economy from the inside out with reckless spending, open borders, woke policies that crush our businesses. And now they've left us with an inflation disaster that's wiping out the savings of our hardworking families. They don't want us to be independent. They want us to be dependent on the government. Well, that's not going to happen on my watch. That's why I partner with American Independence Gold. It's a veteran-owned company that's helping patriotic Americans fight back by protecting our savings with real physical gold and silver. And right now they're giving away up to $15,000 in free silver and a free gold IRA kit. A portion of all the profits go to 9/11 first responders and veterans at the Tunnels to Towers Foundation. The deep state can't touch your gold, so visit MikeLindellGold.com or call 844-714-4653 right now. That's MikeLindellGold.com. Take back control.
Back here on My Mornings, Rollins Park is back open. The park just west of the White House underwent a major restoration as part of a Trump administration effort to clean up Washington. Around $11 million was invested in the cleanup. The centerpiece, historic fountain, which has been inoperable, is now flowing again. Mechanical systems, stonework, landscaping, all improved and brought back to life. Also brought back to life this beautiful DC fountain. This video from ex-user Brick Suit shows the Senate fountain located in Lower Senate Park. A beautiful sight and absolutely a peaceful look there. More to come here on My Mornings. As we go to break, a look at the Sphere in Las Vegas, celebrating America's birthday.
Welcome to Vocal, the free speech social app that gives you a platform to amplify your voice, speak freely, connect boldly, and be part of a growing movement for truth, faith, and freedom. Want to know what's happening right now? The Now Playing feature shows you exactly who's live and what's streaming in real time. Check out the show's feed, a non-stop lineup including LINDELLTV News 24/7, shows and on-demand programming all in one place. Connect with your favorite host and never miss a show. Explore the featured page for quick access to LINDELLTV's top shows. Follow your favorites and watch their newest content flow right into your feed. And when they go live on Vocal, you can join the live chat and be part of the action. Ask questions, share your thoughts, even help shape future shows. Stay informed on issues around securing our elections by following your state's Cause of America account. Join a group and connect on a deeper level, from faith and freedom to the future of our nation. Go to vocal.com or download the app today and be a part of the mission to save our country.
Let's see how the markets are opening today. A live look from MarketWatch.com. Looking at the Dow, the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, all in the green. Looking great this morning. After a strong Monday, investors are watching U.S. labor market data, culminating with Thursday's jobs report, which is coming out. Federal Reserve commentary for clues on interest rate policy. They're also watching corporate earnings from companies including Nike and General Mills. So looking good on Wall Street at this time. In your news to go, a quick look at President Trump's schedule for today. At 8 o'clock this morning, the president held an executive meeting. At 3 this afternoon, he will hold a policy meeting. Then at 7 o'clock tonight, he will attend a dinner for the Rose Garden Club. For all your top headlines today and every day, you can always log on to LINDELLTV.com. We have an array of news stories coming in there all the time, 24/7. You can also download the Lindell TV app, which is free in your app store. Now to our Bible verse of the day, coming from the book of Jeremiah. The Bible says this: "For I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans for welfare and not for calamity, to give you a future and a hope. Then you will call upon me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me when you search for me with all your heart." As we start to wrap up here, just another reminder, we are waiting on the Supreme Court to hand down its decision on birthright citizenship. I'm watching live blogs right now. That decision has not yet been handed down. It could be momentarily. Make sure you're following, again, LINDELLTV.com and also our social media pages for that breaking news. This will define immigration for years to come here in America. So this is a huge day dealing with the laws on immigration here in our country. Birthright citizenship should be handed down any minute. And that'll do it for us here this morning. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll see you all same time, same place tomorrow. And we leave you today with sights from Washington, D.C. as we count down to Independence Day. Have a great day.
You know, most people think water's just about filtration, but in reality, it's about balance. What gets removed, what gets left behind, and how the water actually behaves once you drink it. Well, many traditional systems focus on one thing, removal. Reverse osmosis, for example, strips water down completely. It may sound ideal, but it removes minerals that our bodies need. The Century Wellness System was designed with a different philosophy. It removes common contaminants like chlorine, fluoride, and PFAS, while restoring key minerals like magnesium and improving alkalinity. It also does all this without tanks and without wastewater, and without requiring a complicated installation. It installs in about 15 minutes under your sink, so instead of overcorrecting, it brings your water back into balance. Please visit CenturyH2O.com and use promo code Lindell for 10% off your next purchase. Well, hello everyone. Well, I'm turning 65, and let me tell you, Medicare has me confused. All the junk mail and the robocalls and everything else, it honestly feels like they rigged the system just to confuse us. Well, that's why I partnered and working with Chapter. They're independent and they don't work for big insurance. They work for us. In fact, they're the only advisor that compares every single plan nationwide to find what actually fits your needs. If you're on the right plan, they tell you. If you're not, they're going to help you switch. And it's completely free. Just last year, seniors saved about $1,100 by finding a better plan with Chapter. So call Chapter at 234-LINDELL or go to askchapter.org/Lindell.
Talk is cheap when it comes to saving our country. We're not just any cell phone service provider. We're Patriot Mobile. It's not enough to simply talk about values. We live them. Defending life, protecting our First and Second Amendments, and celebrating our military and first responder heroes. We're boots on the ground making a difference. We're America's only Christian conservative wireless provider with nationwide coverage on all 3 major networks and 100% U.S.-based customer service. Join Patriot Mobile today and make an impact every time you use your cell phone.
America's founders warned that without knowledge and virtue, no nation can remain free. Yet through the steady infiltration of Marxist ideology, we have been stripped of both, and we are no longer a moral and educated people. To save America, we must spark nothing less than a national renaissance. That's why you need Freedom Talk Magazine, the journal of truth and virtue. We cultivate enlightened thinking and principled living, offering unique insights into the issues and remarkable people defining our world. Sign up today for your free subscription to Freedom Talk Magazine and join the new American Renaissance.
Mike Lindell here. The radical left and the deep state aren't just coming for our freedoms, they're coming after our money too. For years, they've been destroying our economy from the inside out with reckless spending, open borders, woke policies that crush our businesses, and now they've left us with an inflation disaster that's wiping out the savings of our hardworking families. They don't want us to be independent. They want us to be dependent on the government. Well, that's not going to happen on my watch. That's why I partner with American Independence Gold. It's a veteran-owned company that's helping patriotic Americans fight back by protecting our savings with real physical gold and silver. And right now, they're giving away up to $15,000 in free silver and a free gold IRA kit. A portion of all the profits go to 9/11 first responders and veterans at the Tunnels to Towers Foundation. The deep state can't touch your gold, so visit MikeLindellGold.com or call 844-714-4653 right now. That's MikeLindellGold.com. Take back control.